Families across the UK are facing a reality that's harsher than ever before. Rising bills, shrinking paychecks, and sacrifices no one should have to make. Behind closed doors, the true struggles are piling up. But what's really happening in 2025 that makes life feel impossible for so many households? Today, we're uncovering 10 shocking reasons families are under pressure. And number 10 is something most people never talk about. But everyone feels stick with me until the end, because each reason connects to a bigger picture that could affect your family more than you think. Number 1. Skyrocketing housing costs. For millions of families in the UK, the biggest monthly expense isn't food, transport, or even childcare. It's the roof over their heads. Over the past decade, housing costs have climbed to record highs, with rents rising faster than wages in nearly every major city. According to the Office for National Statistics, more than 1 in 3 households now spends over 40% of their income on housing alone. This leaves very little room for savings, emergency funds, or even everyday essentials. The dream of home ownership, once considered part of the British identity, is slipping out of reach for many young families, forcing them into long-term renting situations that feel unstable and financially draining. The problem isn't just about cost, it's also about availability. Demand for housing continues to grow, while supply struggles to keep up. Families often face intense competition for small, poorly maintained flats, with landlords able to increase prices, knowing desperate renters will pay. This has led to overcrowding, where multiple family members live in cramped conditions, sacrificing privacy and comfort. In rural areas, the situation is equally challenging, with limited housing stock driving up prices beyond what local wages can sustain. Families who attempt to relocate for affordability often find themselves trading lower rent for longer commutes, higher transport bills, and reduced quality of life. The ripple effect of skyrocketing housing costs is when so much of a paycheck is eaten up by rent or mortgages, parents are forced to cut back on healthy food choices, extracurricular activities for children, or even heating during colder months. Families that would once enjoy modest savings or a summer holiday now live paycheck to paycheck. For many, the choice boils down to space or survival. Do they move further from work and schools to afford a bigger home, or stay central in smaller, more expensive flats just to hold on to stability? The housing struggle in 2025 isn't simply about bricks and mortar. It's about dignity, security, and the very foundation of family life in the UK. Number 2. The cost of childcare. For families across the UK, the cost of childcare has become one of the most pressing financial burdens of 2025. Studies consistently show that the UK has some of the highest childcare fees in the world, often rivaling the cost of private schooling. According to the Quorum Family and Childcare Survey 2024, the average cost of a full-time nursery place for a child under 2 has risen to nearly £15,000 per year. For many parents, this figure is shocking. It means that a significant portion of their annual salary is swallowed up before they even consider housing, food, or bills. The result? Parents are being forced to make incredibly tough choices between career progression and financial survival. The pressure isn't only financial, it's emotional. Parents who want to return to work after maternity or paternity leave often face the devastating reality that working full-time barely covers childcare fees. Some parents, particularly mothers, are pushed out of the workforce altogether because the costs simply outweigh the benefits of staying employed. This leads to long-term consequences, including a widening gender pay gap, stalled career growth, and reduced household income. Families with multiple children feel the pinch even harder, with fees multiplying to levels that rival a second mortgage. At the same time, nurseries and childcare providers are under strain too, struggling to cope with staffing shortages and rising operational costs, which often get passed back to parents in the form of higher fees. The impact on family life is enormous. When childcare consumes such a high percentage of income, families cut back on essentials such as healthy food, transportation, or leisure activities. Many parents lean on grandparents or informal networks for support, which can cause additional strain on extended family. Others reduce working hours or switch to night shifts, sacrificing sleep and health, just to avoid childcare bills. This juggling act doesn't just affect parents, it affects children too, who may miss out on early education opportunities due to affordability barriers. In 2025, the cost of childcare isn't simply a budgeting issue, it's reshaping the way families live, work and dream about their future. Number 3. Stagnant wages versus inflation. One of the most painful realities for UK families in 2025 is the widening gap between stagnant wages and relentless inflation. While the cost of living continues to soar, paychecks simply haven't kept pace. The Resolution Foundation recently reported that real wages have barely recovered from the financial shocks of the past decade, leaving workers with less purchasing power than their parents had at the same stage of life. This means that even when households are technically earning more on paper, their money doesn't stretch nearly as far. For many families, payday brings little relief because as soon as the money arrives, it disappears into bills, rent, and food expenses. The invisible squeeze of inflation is felt everywhere, at the supermarket, at the petrol station, and on utility bills. A basket of groceries that cost £40 just a few years ago can now exceed £60, with essentials like bread, milk, and eggs rising sharply. Meanwhile, fuel and transport costs continue to climb, eating into already tight budgets. Parents trying to save for their children's future, whether for education or simply a rainy day, find themselves unable to set aside even a few pounds. Many households live in a cycle of financial survival rather than growth, constantly trying to plug gaps instead of building security. The stress of seeing wages remain flat, while every trip to the shop feels more expensive, creates a sense of exhaustion and defeat. The bigger concern is how this gap affects family stability and mental health. Parents often feel they are working harder than ever, yet moving backwards financially. Some take on multiple jobs or extra shifts, sacrificing family time, but still struggle to make ends meet. Others fall into credit dependence, using loans or credit cards to bridge the gap between income and expenses. The frustration grows when families see that despite years of hard work, they cannot provide the stability or comfort they hoped for. In 2025, the struggle of stagnant wages versus inflation is not just about numbers, it's about the erosion of hope, opportunity, and the promise that hard work should pay off. Number 4. Food prices and supermarket struggles. For families in the UK, the weekly food shop has turned into one of the most stressful parts of modern life. The Food Foundation reported in 2024 that almost 1 in 5 households now face some level of food insecurity, meaning they worry about whether they can afford enough to eat. Prices of basic staples like bread, pasta, eggs and milk have jumped by double digits in the past 2 years, while fresh fruit and vegetables have become a luxury for many. What used to feel like a manageable £50 grocery trip now barely fills a basket, leaving parents forced to make heartbreaking choices about what to cut out. Families are constantly balancing the need for nutrition against the brutal reality of affordability. Behind these price hikes are complex global and domestic factors. The lingering effects of Brexit trade shifts, global supply chain disruptions, and the war in Ukraine continue to push up the cost of imports. At the same time, rising energy and transport costs for suppliers are passed down directly to shoppers. Even supermarkets known for budget pricing have steadily raised costs, making it harder to find true bargains. Food banks, once seen as emergency support, have now become a regular source of survival for thousands of working families. Parents often skip meals to ensure their children are fed, a hidden sacrifice that underscores how deeply the crisis cuts into daily life. The emotional impact of these supermarket struggles is enormous. Family mealtimes, once a source of bonding and joy, are now shadowed by anxiety over affordability. Many parents feel guilt or shame when they can't provide the quality of meals they want for their children. Eating out, once an occasional treat, has nearly disappeared from many household budgets. Instead, families are stretching meals, buying in bulk, or turning to cheaper processed foods, which raises long-term health concerns. The battle over food prices is not only about survival today, but also about the future well-being of children growing up with limited access to healthy and balanced diets. Number 5. Energy crisis aftershocks. Even though headlines about the energy crisis have faded since its peak in 2022, the aftershocks are still hammering families across the UK in 2025. Household energy bills remain painfully high, with the average family spending hundreds more each year on gas and electricity than before the crisis began. According to National Energy Action (NEA), Millions of households are still classified as living in fuel poverty, meaning they cannot afford to heat their homes adequately. For families already stretched by housing and food costs, energy has become the tipping point, forcing impossible choices such as heating or eating. Parents wrap children in extra blankets, boil kettles for hot water bottles, and keep lights off to shave a few pounds off the next bill. The crisis has roots in global events, volatile gas prices, reduced supply from international markets, and the heavy costs of energy imports. While government schemes offered temporary relief, they were never designed to solve the long-term affordability problem. Energy companies argue that infrastructure upgrades and green transitions require higher costs. But for families, those justifications do little to soften the blow. Winter months bring particular dread, as cold weather magnifies both health risks and financial strain. For many, energy bills now rival rent or mortgage payments, a shocking reality that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. Families in older, poorly insulated homes face the harshest burden, watching their limited income literally leak out through drafty windows and uninsulated walls. The impact goes far beyond comfort. Living in cold, underheated homes directly harms physical health, especially for children and the elderly, increasing risks of respiratory illness and damp-related conditions. The mental strain is just as severe. Families report constant anxiety when opening their bills, with some falling into arrears that spiral into debt collection threats. The small daily habits, turning off radiators, avoiding hot showers, cooking less often, become symbols of survival rather than choice. In 2025, the energy struggle is not just about high numbers on a bill. It is about dignity, safety, and the right of every family to live in a warm, secure home without sacrificing their well-being. Number 6. Healthcare system under pressure. The healthcare system in the UK, once considered a source of pride, is now under immense pressure in 2025, leaving families struggling to access the care they desperately need. The NHS has seen record waiting times, with millions of patients waiting weeks, sometimes months, just to secure an appointment with a GP or specialist. According to NHS England reports, waiting lists for routine procedures are at their highest levels in decades. For parents, this means worrying when a child develops an illness and knowing that immediate treatment may not be available. Families often turn to costly private healthcare as a last resort, pushing already fragile budgets into further strain. The causes are deeply rooted in systemic challenges. Years of underfunding, staff shortages, and the lingering impact of the pandemic have left hospitals and clinics stretched thin. Healthcare workers, overwhelmed and underpaid, are leaving the profession faster than they can be replaced, leading to an even greater shortage of doctors, nurses, and support staff. At the same time, an aging population has increased demand on the system, making it harder for families to secure timely appointments for children or working-age adults. In some regions, families travel long distances just to find available healthcare services, an added cost in both time and money. These systemic cracks force families to navigate a healthcare environment that feels unpredictable and exhausting. The personal toll on families is enormous. Delayed diagnoses lead to conditions worsening, creating greater health risks and more expensive treatments later on. Parents often carry the heavy emotional burden of not being able to protect their children's health due to systemic failure. Some are forced into making painful financial sacrifices, choosing to pay for private consultations instead of covering other essential expenses. This constant trade-off fuels stress, anxiety, and frustration. For many families, the promise of universal healthcare now feels like a broken safety net. In 2025, the struggle with healthcare is not just about medicine or treatment. It is about the growing fear that the system designed to protect families may no longer be strong enough to meet their needs. Number 7. Transport and commute costs. For countless families in the UK, transport and commuting have become a silent but relentless drain on household finances. Rail fares, bus tickets, and fuel prices continue to climb, making it increasingly expensive simply to get to work, school, or essential appointments. According to industry reports, average rail fares have risen by more than 5% annually, often outpacing wage growth and inflation. For those living outside city centres, commuting costs can swallow hundreds of pounds each month, an unavoidable burden for parents who have no choice but to travel long distances for employment. Families in rural areas are hit especially hard, as limited public transport forces them into heavy dependence on cars and rising fuel prices. The problem extends beyond just cost. It's about time lost. Lengthy commutes mean parents spending hours away from their children, reducing family bonding and increasing daily stress. Delayed or overcrowded trains add another layer of frustration, often making journeys unpredictable and exhausting. For working parents already balancing the high demands of jobs and childcare, commuting becomes more than a financial issue. It becomes a source of emotional fatigue. Families may attempt to save money by moving further away from expensive cities, but this decision often backfires, as savings on rent are quickly swallowed by rising travel costs. The so-called commuter belt lifestyle is no longer a symbol of opportunity, but one of sacrifice. The ripple effects of transport struggles are profound. Parents cut back on family outings or social activities simply because travel costs are too high. Car maintenance, insurance, and fuel take priority over leisure or savings, leaving little flexibility in tight budgets. Some families resort to unsafe compromises, like driving older cars they cannot afford to repair properly, creating risks on the road. Meanwhile, the promise of greener, more affordable transport options remains slow to materialize, leaving families stuck with outdated systems and escalating costs. In 2025, transport and commuting are not just about getting from point A to point B. They represent the daily grind of financial pressure, lost time, and the heavy price families pay just to keep life moving. Number 8. Rising debt and credit dependence. For many families in the UK, debt is no longer an occasional setback, but a permanent part of survival. With wages lagging behind costs and essentials like housing, food, and childcare consuming most of the household budget, more families rely on credit cards, loans, and overdrafts just to make it through the month. The Step Change Debt Charity has reported a sharp rise in the number of households seeking help, with millions now struggling under the weight of unsecured debt. This dependence on credit often starts small, covering a bill here or a grocery shop there, but it quickly snowballs into unmanageable repayments, high interest rates, and mounting stress. The cycle of debt is vicious. Families may borrow to cover essentials, but once repayments and interest pile up, they are forced to borrow again, creating a trap that feels impossible to escape. Rising energy and transport costs push households further into arrears, while unexpected expenses like car repairs or medical bills become financial catastrophes. Credit companies and payday lenders often exploit this desperation, offering quick cash, with punishing interest rates that lock families into long-term struggles. Even those with steady jobs find that their income cannot cover both living expenses and repayment schedules, leading to difficult choices between paying debt collectors or providing for their children. The emotional and social impact is devastating. Constant financial pressure creates stress, anxiety, and family conflict, as parents argue over how to stretch limited money or prioritize repayments. Children are often shielded from the details, but still feel the effects, experiencing cutbacks in clothing, activities, and even school trips. Debt can also isolate families, as embarrassment or shame prevents them from seeking help or sharing their struggles with friends and relatives. For some, the weight of financial problems leads to mental health breakdowns or relationship strain. In 2025, the growing reliance on debt is not just about numbers on a balance sheet. It is about the erosion of security, dignity, and peace of mind. Families are fighting, not only to stay afloat financially, but also to hold on to hope for a future free from the crushing cycle of credit dependence. Number 9. Mental health toll. Beyond the financial pressures, families in the UK are increasingly struggling with the mental health toll of modern life in 2025. Rising costs, job insecurity, and constant uncertainty have left parents and children under enormous emotional strain. According to research from Mind and the NHS, rates of anxiety and depression among adults have climbed sharply, with parents often reporting stress levels that feel unmanageable. For children, the environment of tension at home can spill over into school performance, behavior, and long-term well-being. Mental health is no longer a background issue. It has become a defining part of daily family life. The causes are tightly linked to the broader struggles families face. Constantly worrying about housing, energy bills, and debt creates a level of stress that never fully goes away. Parents describe lying awake at night, running through numbers, and wondering how to stretch paychecks further. For single parents, the pressure is even more intense, as the entire weight of financial and emotional responsibility falls on one set of shoulders. Children, even when not directly told about financial problems, often sense the tension, leading to their own feelings of insecurity. Meanwhile, access to mental health services is limited, with waiting lists stretching months, leaving many families without timely support. The effects ripple outward into every aspect of family life. Relationships between partners are tested, as financial stress fuels arguments and resentment. Parents struggling with anxiety or depression may find it harder to be emotionally present for their children, creating cycles of guilt and frustration. Families cut back on activities that once brought joy, holidays, outings, or even simple weekends together, because stress or finances make them feel impossible. Over time, the sense of constant pressure chips away at resilience, leaving families drained. In 2025, the mental health toll isn't just about statistics, it's about tired parents masking their exhaustion with a smile, children quietly carrying fears they don't know how to express, and entire households trying to hold together under invisible but crushing weight. Number 10. Declining work-life balance. In 2025, one of the most overlooked but deeply damaging struggles for families in the UK is the steady decline of work-life balance. More parents are working longer hours, taking on multiple jobs, or adding overtime just to keep up with rising costs of living. According to reports from the Trades Union Congress, TUC, families now spend more time at work than almost any other country in Western Europe. Yet many still feel financially insecure. The pursuit of survival, rather than comfort, leaves little room for relaxation or meaningful family time. Parents often come home exhausted, with energy only for bills and chores, not bonding with their children. This imbalance is not only about hours, it is about the quality of life being sacrificed. Families who once enjoyed weekends together now spend them catching up on work, managing side hustles, or planning how to make ends meet. Technology, while making remote work easier, has blurred the lines between home and office, with parents often responding to emails late at night or squeezing in tasks during family dinners. Children, noticing this absence, may feel neglected even when their parents are physically present. The emotional cost is enormous: guilt for parents who want to be more engaged, and disappointment for children who crave attention. The result is a growing sense that life is passing by too quickly, with memories sacrificed at the altar of financial survival. The consequences ripple into both mental health and family relationships. Parents under constant pressure to provide may feel resentment, burnout, or even health problems caused by lack of rest. Partners have less time to nurture their relationships, increasing stress and conflict within the home. Children, in turn, may feel the absence during key moments of growth. School events missed, milestones overlooked, or simple playtime sacrificed. Families are left asking, what is the point of endless hard work if there is no time left to enjoy the reward? In 2025, the decline of work-life balance shows that the struggle of UK families is not only about money, it is about losing the very experiences that give life meaning. The struggles faced by families in the UK in 2025 are not isolated problems. They are interconnected pressures that shape nearly every aspect of daily life, from skyrocketing housing costs to the crushing weight of childcare expenses, from stagnant wages that don't stretch far enough to the stress of rising debt. Families are constantly battling to maintain stability. Even essentials such as food, energy, healthcare, and transport, things that should be accessible, have turned into sources of relentless anxiety. Layered on top of this is the invisible toll of mental health struggles and the heartbreaking loss of work-life balance, leaving many parents wondering if all their sacrifices will ever truly pay off. These are not just statistics on a report, they are the lived experiences of millions of people who wake up every day determined to provide for their families, despite feeling like the odds are stacked against them. And while the challenges are enormous, conversations like these are essential. The more we talk about these struggles, the more awareness grows, and the greater the pressure for meaningful change. By sharing and reflecting, we create space for solidarity, empathy, and action. Families deserve more than survival. They deserve stability, dignity, and the chance to build a brighter future. The fight against these challenges is not just about money or policy, it's about the very foundation of family life in the UK, and the kind of society we want to create for generations to come. Share your story in the comments, because your voice matters here. And if you found value in this video, please support us. We put hours of effort into bringing you these insights. Don't forget to subscribe with just one click, and check out our previous video for even more eye-opening truths.